It's Sunday, April 12th, 2026, and we have some major severe weather updates to talk about, especially for the upper Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin. I'm looking at you. We could also see some very significant severe weather through portions of Iowa, Illinois, Michigan, out there in the plains. I don't want to waste too much time in the intro. Let's get into it. All right, let's start off by taking a look at our risk zones. These are our day one risk zones. So for today, I don't suspect today's going to get too severe. I will say I do agree with this slight down here. If you take a look at what's happening on the HRRR on the Rufus, we are going to see a lot of thunderstorms likely fire off down in this region as we push later into the afternoon and into the evening hours. But if we break this down, 2% tornado risk, we actually do have the 2% SIG up here through portions of northeastern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin. So that's something to watch later today into the early evening hours or into the evening hours as well. Up north, you have a large 2% risk for tornadoes down here as well, stretching from the Texas-Mexico border all the way up into portions of central Kansas. So keep your alerts on today. Only a 2% risk, but you never know. It's better to be safe than sorry. Now let's get into our day two. And this is when things could get very, very significant, especially if you're up there in Minnesota and Wisconsin. You've got a marginal categorical risk down there in Texas, stretching up through Oklahoma. And if we break this down, 2% tornado risk, 5% wind risk, 5% hatched hail risk, meaning we could see some larger hail. But look at what's happening up here to the north. Let's actually go to categorical first. We have a 3 out of 5 enhanced risk. I think there's a chance that this could go moderate, 4 out of 5. I don't think we're getting a high, but I think there's a chance this could go moderate. That's just my opinion. We'll see if it does. I'll update you if it does. 3 out of 5 risk, enhanced risk for Minneapolis, Eau Claire, St. Cloudier in this. So obviously stretching out there east towards central Wisconsin. So what is this risk for? Well, we have a 5% hatched risk for tornadoes. I think this could actually move up to a 10% risk for tornadoes as well, just with all the latest model info coming in. Take a look at our wind, 15%, 5 to 15% region for wind. And then look at hail, 30% hatch risk for hail. So very large hail is possible, it looks like, tomorrow through this region as well. I'm going to break this down a lot more in a second. I just want to get through the risk zones first. Let's take a look at our day three. Let's go to probabilistic. There you go. More severe weather stretching all the way from Texas up through portions of Ohio and Michigan. We move to day four, same type of area, southern plains up there through portions of the Midwest. And look at that, day six. We're still kind of in the same area. So the severe weather isn't going anywhere. I want to break down the details, especially of tomorrow's severe weather event though. So let's get into it. There you go. This is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then this is Friday. We could also see severe weather on Thursday. I wouldn't be surprised. So like I said, buckle up. Severe weather's not going anywhere. This is what we're looking at today. Again, that 2% risk for tornadoes down there in the southern plains, and then up there in northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin as well. Keep those alerts on. You do have that 2% hatch risk for tornadoes. You can see as we move throughout the evening hours, you start to see these storms firing off down there through portions of central and eastern Texas. So as we get into the late afternoon, as we push through the evening, again, I don't suspect we're going to get anything too severe. It is possible we get 1 or 2 tornadoes. So again, keep your alerts on. It is possible to see some damaging wind. It is possible to see some hail. Tomorrow and Tuesday just look much more significant than the setup we have today. And up there through portions of northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, if you do have some storms moving through that could produce a tornado, they're more likely to be as we get towards the 4 or 5 p.m. hour and after. All right, here is tomorrow's risk zones. And I want to zoom in up here. We just went over them. Just to show you again, we're looking at portions of Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin, but that main tornado and wind threat is up there through portions of central Minnesota and central to northern Wisconsin. If you live in Minnesota or Wisconsin, you need to pay attention, especially Minneapolis. Obviously, there's a ton of people in the Minneapolis metro. The latest Rufus, the latest HRRR, the latest NAM put some strong supercells through the Minneapolis metro or in and around that region before moving these storms off east through Wisconsin. I mean, this looks very, very impressive on the updraft, helicity, reflectivity. We don't want to make our forecast just based off this, but let's take a look at what the HRRR is doing, the HRRR. Same thing. You have these strong storms firing off, and I'm telling you, if you get these individual supercells like this with these other cells around it, storms can feed off of the outflow boundaries of these other supercells or thunderstorms around them, and you can get long track damaging supercells, potentially long track damaging tornadoes. And you can see where the HRRR is putting some of these storms right there towards and around the Minneapolis metro. You have Eau Claire out here as well. The NAM shows it as well. Like I said, the NAM isn't as impressive. The NAM shows a little bit of a weaker setup, but they're all putting some strong thunderstorms right through Minneapolis out towards Eau Claire there, and again in the areas around. So let's move into what's happening here. Here's the 500 millibar level. This is the mid-level of the atmosphere. You can see these kind of wobbles in the isobar on the 500 millibar map. And again, central Minnesota, right up there through central to northern Wisconsin, Minneapolis to Eau Claire, you have these shortwave troughs moving over this region. You take a look at what's happening in the lower levels of the atmosphere, strong shear. We're talking about almost 70 knot shear, 75 knot shear. We're talking about 90 plus mile per hour winds, or close to 90 mile per hour winds. That's going to play a big role in helping to spin up and maintain these very strong, potentially supercells capable of producing damaging hail, damaging wind, and tornadoes. These parameters are lining up pretty well for a potentially significant event tomorrow. And again, that's why I do think we could end up going moderate tomorrow. We haven't yet, but it's possible. Here we go. You see this temperature gradient here. We're going to be pretty warm. Looks like we could get up towards 77, 78 degrees out there in and around Minneapolis metro. So lots of energy for these thunderstorms. And then you start to kind of see this Bear Clinic boundary setting up. This is also going to help with that lift mechanism. You take a look at what's happening with our dew points. We're pushing 65, 66. Why is this important? Well, moist air is buoyant. The air is going to be very buoyant. We're going to have shear. This is going to be a very, very unstable atmosphere in this region. I really don't think these storms are going to have an issue punching through a cap if there is one. Taking a look at the wind gusts on the latest Rufus model, and I mean, you can see here 73, 75, 71 mile per hour wind gusts potentially with some of these storms. I do think you could see isolated 80, 90 plus mile per hour winds with some of these supercells if they do fire off the way that it looks like they're going to tomorrow. I definitely don't want to skip over timing, and that's something I haven't mentioned yet. It does look like, as of right now, these storms are going to try to begin firing off around 4 to 5 p.m. Central. Give or take an hour, things speed up, things slow down. Could take longer to break through a cap if we do have some capping issues. So I would say as we get into the early to mid-afternoon, you really need to be paying attention. Some people may want to get home from work a little bit earlier, again, if these storms start to fire off closer to 4 o'clock. This is a sounding I took in and around the Minneapolis metro. I believe this is as we move into the evening hours, and possible hazard type PDS TOR, so particularly dangerous situation. This means we could see an EF2, EF3 type tornado. You can see what's happening here with the hodograph. You've got rotation, you've got strong winds, strong rotating winds in the atmosphere, a ton of CAPE, a ton of instability. We're pushing 2,500 joules per kilogram of surface CAPE. The shear at the surface is 44 knots, which is way more than sufficient. You only need 20, 25 knots to really promote some severe weather down there at the surface. We're pushing 44 knots. You can see what's happening here. Effective layer SIGTOR per AM, 8.0, 9.0. This is a pretty significant looking sounding here. And speaking of instability, there you go, 3,000 joules per kilogram. Potentially, this is the surface-based CAPE in and around Minneapolis metro, and then out there towards Eau Claire as well. This would be as we get into around 8 p.m., 7 p.m. tomorrow. You can see what's happening on our surface-based CAPE crossover map. You've got these winds changing directions as we go up higher in the atmosphere, and what is that going to do? That's going to help to rotate our storms. Why do storms need to be spinning to maintain their strength? If your storm doesn't have an inflow and isn't rotating, basically, as it begins to rain, that rainfall is going to fall directly back down on those updrafts. The atmosphere beneath it is going to become stable, and it's basically going to wash out the system. So what happens when we have a rotating storm? Well, those updrafts, that instability is out ahead of the storm's rotating, so the rainfall is actually not falling back down on itself, it's falling away from that instability, away from those updrafts, so the storm can continue to strengthen. This rain isn't falling down and stabilizing the atmosphere beneath it, it's actually falling away from the system. So again, those updrafts can continue. That's why when we see a lot of instability and we see that rotational shear, you know that we could get some storms that really try sticking around for a while. So these types of storms can long track. So they develop, they hold their strength as they move out to the east because, again, you have a strong rotation, that instability isn't being affected. I'm telling you, get ready for tomorrow. Now we're getting into our day 3. So this is Tuesday. You can see a large 5 to 15% risk zone here with that SIG-1 down here through the southern plains. So the severe weather down in the southern plains could be a little bit more significant. Now, taking a look at the latest Rufus, it's interesting because there's a lot going on in the mid to lower levels of the atmosphere in this region on Tuesday, yet we're not seeing any storms firing off. So I think there's some capping issues that may happen, that could happen, at least this model seeing it across portions of Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, maybe southern Iowa, but you do have strong storms firing off in the southern plains. And watch as we move forward in time on Tuesday. Look at that. Northern Illinois, eastern Iowa, central to southern Wisconsin. The Rufus model wants an outbreak of supercells up there. I don't know if I'm completely sold on that yet. And then this would move east into Michigan, where I think we could have a pretty significant wind threat on Tuesday. You can see what's happening down there in the southern plains on Tuesday. This is in the mid levels. You have these short waves developing. Very, very nice flow down there. We have a pretty decent flow as well in the mid layers up here in the Midwest, moving into the Great Lakes region. Again, you can see these shortwave troughs developing. We take a look at what's happening with our shear as we get late into the evening on Tuesday, and strong shear across portions of the southern plains. Again, look at what's happening here, eastern Kansas and Missouri. If we get these storms to fire off, we could see some significant severe weather through this region as well. Plenty of instability. You can see here we're pushing anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000, in some cases 4,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE, stretching from the southern plains all the way up through the Great Lakes region on Tuesday. Then we get into Wednesday. Again, I talked about this earlier in the video. Another severe weather risk, and then another severe weather risk on Thursday. I think there'll be some severe weather potential for Wednesday as well. I really wanted to get this video out, especially because I live in Minneapolis, so this is looking really, really interesting for our area. I am definitely going to be live streaming a little bit later today, so if you want to get on and ask me any questions, feel free. I really appreciate you watching this video. And if you want to join my weather Discord, it's an awesome weather Discord, almost 700 weather enthusiasts in there. The link is in the description directly below this video. You can hop in there and become a part of the climate crew. Again, I really appreciate you watching this video, and I'll see you in the next video, or I'll see you in the live stream in just a little bit.